welcome on stage Ben Diamond, Global Commercial Director at Lumen. Give him a hand.
Oh. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Well, I hope everyone's had a great event. I certainly have. It's been so many great speakers, so congratulations to Matt up north for such a great roster. This is a penultimate chat of today, I think, so thanks for those of you who've come along to hear it, and I look forward to having a beer with some of you at the bar afterwards. My name is Ben Diamond. I'm the Commercial Director of Lumen Research. Now, some of you out there probably are brands or agencies, and you're involved with running advertising campaigns, and I'm sure you probably agree that understanding if those ads worked is one of the most important things to know. There's obviously a famous quote that some of you will know, half of the money I spend in advertising is wasted, the trouble is I don't know which half. And that quote is actually over 100 years old. But the same challenge is true of today in 2025. The difference, I guess, is in this era, we have more technology, way more sophisticated technology, is a bit of an understatement, than we did 100 years ago. And one of those bits of technology, or one of those tools we have today, which is kind of pretty recent, is the ability to understand if people looked at advertising or not. Which is, if you went back 100 years and said that to John Wanamaker, who came up with that quote, he'd fall off his stool, his monocle would pop out. And so really, it's what we want to chat to you about today is what you can do with attention and show you a little bit of research that we've done. This is going to be a very top line. I know when I say research at 3:10 on the end of the day, everyone freaks, but like it's going to be top line and you can go and look at our white paper later. But we want to show you what happens when people look at ads and what happens downstream, and does it drive memory specifically? So we'll go through that. But before we do that, of course, we just have to tell you a little bit about who Lumen are. We've been mentioned a little bit around the show today, which is fantastic from partners and clients. But so some of you might already know us, but for those of you who don't know us, Lumen is an attention specialist, an attention company. And really, just put it simply, we help our partners and brands understand what ads people looked at and what ads people didn't look at. We are based on two core bits of technology. The first bit of technology is eye tracking technology. We've created a bit of software that converts those front-facing cameras on the mobile phone screen or your laptop into a sophisticated eye tracking device, and we're able to put that technology into panels. And that means when we put that in front of hundreds of thousands of panelists, we're able to amass this real big wealth of data about what people look at and what they don't look at. And the second bit of technology that we have is our predictive model. Now, the job of the predictive model is to sit on top of our wealth of eye tracking data and use that to predict attention outside of panel environments. So in real world environments for our campaigns, for our customers' live campaigns. So the predictive models work by, if you can tell me a load of things about your campaign, like the environmental and behavioral signals of your campaign, we can tell you a prediction on attention, which you can then use for measurement analysis of your campaigns. You can use it to optimize your campaigns. You can use it to link into your econometric models and all sorts of wonderful things. So that's what we do at Lumen. When it comes to attention, Lumen's been doing this for 11 plus years. Myself personally, I've been in the attention space for 6 years. And really, we believe, and I'm sure it's probably a common belief around those in the crowd today, ads that don't get looked at all in visual medium of advertising just cannot be effective. Put another way, if you're wanting to get people to remember your brand through advertising, or you want them to go and buy your product through advertising, if they don't look at the ad at all, you're not going to be able to drive those outcomes. So we think that attention is fundamental to ad effectiveness. And the point of this research was really to put some science behind that sort of core belief as one thing, but also unpack some other hypotheses we had around that. Things such as, well, does it matter how much attention you pay to an ad? Does that have an impact on outcomes, greater or less? what happens if you've got a different outcome? So from very top of the funnel to slightly further down the funnel, do you need more or less attention? Are we looking at single exposures of ads, or are we looking at cumulative exposures of ads? So really, we wanted to unpack that with this research, and there's a few things here we're going to show you which hopefully will be interesting, if some of that stuff interests you, of course. Some of you might say, rightly, but if I can measure those outcomes, so I can measure sales lift, I can measure brand lift, why do I need to measure attention? And it is a very good question. The answer to that is attention. If you didn't already know, attention is a leading indicator. And what that means is you don't find out about attention after the campaign, 3 weeks once it's finished, and sort of as a nice to have. Attention is a leading indicator, meaning you can help. It can help you plan and measure your campaigns in real time. And that becomes very useful for those who plan and buy media, especially as it's got these characteristics that help them do that. So it's non-sparse, which means you can measure it on everything. You can measure every single impression, you get a lot of data back. It's also very granular, which means you don't just get it down to sort of a channel, you can go right down into all different sorts of elements like ad sizes and creatives and domains, and get really into the weeds of what's working and what's not. It's available in real time, as I mentioned, which means you don't have to wait till the campaign's finished to start using that data. And most importantly, it's actionable. You can intervene. You can make a decision about whether you're going to buy one placement or another placement in real time using attention signals. So if you can correlate it to the thing you really care about, because attention is not an outcome, but if you can correlate it to the things you care about, your outcomes, it becomes a very effective tool at driving those. So the research, and I'm not going to go too much into the methodology, A, because it's a Thursday afternoon, and B, because we haven't got that much time. But if you want a full copy of the white paper, you can come and see us at our picnic table, or you can email us, or it's on our website. We worked with, the research actually was commissioned by our agency partner, which is Havas. So if you're from Havas, thank you very much for the work. But we also worked alongside a company called Brand Metrics. So Lumen brought the attention data to the party. Brand Metrics is a company that measures brand lift. They brought the brand lift measurement to the party. And the reason, I'll just quickly mention, one of the reasons why this research is quite unique, or very unique, is Brand Lift as a partner is quite unique in the way that they operate. So one of the first things they do that's really unique is they always measure back to the same 4 things. So they always look at awareness, consideration, brand favorability, and action intent. And what that means is, if every question links back to those 4 things, when you start to compare data sets, you're comparing a very robust data set, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is, they measure in the ad ecosystem itself. What that means is, maybe the person received 1 ad, 2 ad, 3 ad, 4 ad, and the 5th ad they might have received was a recruitment ad for the survey, which means we're able to understand frequency and the aggregate level of attention and impact, and how that impacted brand lift. So the research itself, I won't go through the numbers, but you can see them there. 1.8 million respondents. We looked at over 9,000 campaigns. So you could kind of take these results to the bank. They're built on very robust numbers, which I think is always really important to show up. So the research itself, we actually had, I think in the white paper we had 5 key learnings, but we've distilled it down to 3 today, which we thought were the most relevant for today's session. And this is quite graphy for a Thursday afternoon, so just quick, don't have to worry too much about it. But on the y-axis, you've got brand lift, what Brand Metrics measured. On the x-axis, you've got attention time in seconds. And these lines, as I mentioned earlier, we looked at awareness. Are you aware of this brand? Consideration, would you consider buying this brand? Preference, is this your brand preference? Action intent, are you going to action it? You're going to go and buy that product or whatever it is. The first thing to say, our hypothesis, do ads that people don't look at have any effectiveness? When attention seconds are 0, we saw that the brand lift in each of these areas was 0. Ads that do not get looked at didn't seem to drive any lift. So that was kind of our first hypothesis ticked off. But then the second thing was, well, does it matter how much attention you get? And you can kind of see as the attention goes up, peaks quite steeply at the beginning, but you do see a trend that more attention is linking to more outcomes in this upper funnel. So these were great learnings. Great to see those. But then the next hypothesis we want to look at specifically was understanding sort of frequency. Not that many of the impressions served or the users served to just saw one ad. They saw multiple ads. And we could see actually, some of the people that saw up to 10 ads, it was a big percentage of who we, of the study. And so I'll go back one. When we looked at this attention, we were able to look at individual attention on the ads and how that correlated to brand lift, and then aggregate attention. Attention when you marry up all the ads exposed to an individual user. It was aggregate attention that had the biggest correlation to the outcomes. So putting together bits of attention had a big impact on the outcome itself. And we think this is really interesting. It's also really important because as an industry, we talk a lot about reach and frequency, of course. And what we found, and there's a big common view on, limit your frequency and increase your reach. Actually, what we found was you do need a bit of frequency in there. Because what we found is when people are reminded about the brand multiple times, that is when we had the biggest impact in terms of things like awareness. So this is an interesting learning, yes, but it's also, I think, quite an important learning in a world where in some environments, certainly in digital world, some environments, it's becoming harder because of the crackdown on identifiers, it's becoming harder to actually frequency cap or control frequency. These learnings, I think, is quite interesting because what this says is, obviously we don't want to spam people, but actually having a bit of frequency actually can really help. And limiting frequency too much could be a bit of a banana skin. So this was our second learning. Our third learning, and our final learning today, was we wanted to really understand if different objectives needed different levels of attention. And what we found was that actually right at the top of the funnel, when you're asking people about awareness and consideration, what we found was higher frequency of little bits of attention was what was the most effective. And I like to think of this as little brand pokes or brand nudges. So just having the brand exposed to the user, and they have to pay attention to it, as we saw in the first graph. But if they have good enough attention, and you get multiple exposures of that, that is what drove awareness and consideration. With going slightly further down the funnel, wanting to get people to make that brand their preference, or for them to actually say they're going to go out and action it, longer duration of attention on individual ads was actually very useful. And the way I like to think about that is, if you're trying to convince someone of your message, actually get them to go and be motivated to go and action it, they might need to spend a little longer understanding what you're trying to sell them, rather than awareness. It might just be, like I say, a nudge, just showing your branding. Of course, yes, I remember that. It went into my memory. But if you're trying to convince me of something, like we were saying, more attention actually worked more effectively. So I think I probably haven't been that long, so you can all have a bit of time back and get to the bar after the next session. But as a summary, some of the things that we pulled out from this study: attention drives action. That's fantastic. For those of you who are looking to do some experimentation with attention, we're able to say that when you get attention versus when you don't get attention, you're able to drive outcomes. That's important. We also found that aggregate attention time is really important. This is the first time really we've seen a study like this where we expose that aggregate attention is very important rather than just individual exposures. And then different strategies might need, or different objectives might need different attention strategies. These are all directional learnings, I'll say. So we did it on 9,000 brands, but actually, or 9,000 campaigns. Actually, of course, as always, the best approach really is to work out what's right for your brand, because every brand is different. We all have you have different market shares, you have different objectives, you have different creatives. So what we actually do a lot of work at Lumen is understanding how much attention a specific brand needs, and we call it taking them on an attention journey. And so this is a great bit of research, I think. I'm very biased, of course. But if you would like to learn more, come and have a chat with us. If you'd like to understand what it means for your brands, then of course come and have a chat with us as well. And enjoy the rest of the show, and thank you very much.